Welcome to the Science and Spirituality Podcast, where we dive deep into universal spiritual principles and ground them in modern science. My name is Chris Carden.
And my name is Kevin Carden. And we are committed to simplifying the spiritual side of success for you with easy to understand scientific research so you could walk away with practical tools to create radical transformations in your life. Let's get started.
Welcome to the second episode. Wait, sorry. Should I say welcome to the second episode?
No.
All
Let's get started.
So,
Bro.
yeah.
I'm going to start it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got two takes. All right. One more try.
Throughout human history, when you look back on humans and how we've developed throughout history and time,
I'm sorry. We're going to keep that, but it's just funny because like you said, like if we look back at human history, at humans or something like that. But I wanted to begin it anyway. You got your third strike.
all right, word, go.
So in this episode, we want to really dive into more of the spirituality of life, just why we're alive and why we're here. That's a very big question, I believe, that everyone comes to ask themselves at some point in their lives. And why, like, why are we here? And we're going to provide some answers in our own perception, but just wanted to dive into that because this is the science and spirituality podcast. And so like we talked a lot about science in the first episode, but we want to go a bit more leaning towards the spirituality of things in this episode. So go on what you were saying, Chris. It was just the introduction, like the beginning of it wasn't it wasn't like jiving with it. So you tell.
I was just thinking that like throughout human history, the way that we as a people and we as a species have came across some of our biggest scientific discoveries was coming from a place of curiosity and asking why we're here and trying to figure out more about the world that we live in, staring up at the stars, like inventing telescopes, like trying to figure out, just make sense of where we are in time and space.
Yeah.
And I think as our instruments have gotten more advanced and as we've discovered more and more stuff, there's still this underlying question of why we're here that science still hasn't been able to answer. And so I think as you, and this is what I've noticed in today's day and age, the more that science is advancing, the more that spirituality and the kind of like I don't know what to call it, just the other side of science with like yoga and complementary medicine and mind-body stuff and just all these other alternative modalities are kind of rising up with the same amount of strength as the new sciences, because the more and more we learn about the world, the more and more we don't know. And the more curious we get as humans. And, as humans, that's what we want to do. We want to expand, we want to grow, we want to learn about things. And so it's from that basis of curiosity that a lot of our amazing inventions in science have come, but it also just leaves that space to think more about spirituality as well.
Yeah. And like you said, that it's as we grow, it's like we still have that yearning for more.
Mm-hmm.
That I believe like is the basis, like the backing of all things. And it's actually like the backing of the basis of science. So like, why has science come to be? It's because humans have been curious about certain things, just like Autumn right now. She's being super curious about what's on my desk right now. And she's just like climbing up, like right next to the microphone. It's just life. Like life itself is seeking more. And so like there's that it's kind of intangible to talk. It's hard to touch, hard to talk about, because the very fact of talking about it, the words that we use starts to put more of the concrete nature to it. But it's not concrete. Like spirituality, spirit, God, source, infinite intelligence, the creator of this universe cannot be described.
Right.
But we as humans have always wanted to describe that. That's why religions had formed, because we wanted a systemized way of connecting with this higher power. But it's we can talk at length about that, of like the terrible, or I wouldn't even actually I was going to go and saying like how bad, like what are the causes of religion, like what religion has caused in history. and it has seemingly been bad. But actually, like, pause for a second, because I came back on that because I've been reading a book. I finished it, but it's just been still like turning over in my mind. A book by Wallace Wattles called The Science of Being Great.
Mm-hmm.
In it, he talks about that God has always been producing great work, like perfect work for that time of in the evolution of this universe, and then going to the next level. It's like it's always growing, it's always an expansion, and God knows what he is doing. And that's just the label I use, God, but I provided a bunch of different other examples. You can also use Allah or Krishna or any higher form, like higher belief, like higher
The
power.
universe, you can even say,
Exactly.
just believing in that, an energy that's behind everything.
Exactly. And that it creates all. So even the bad stuff, and we can definitely talk into that, of how this applies to, say, like the person listening to this, of like what we may see or seem like this is bad, but it's actually not, because it's helping us grow and helping us evolve. And so once we start to dive more into the spirituality, then the science starts to make more sense, because science, again, it comes out of this urge in us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely what I wanted to dive into in this episode, to obviously just to talk about, but also like to provide some real value into the person listening, of like how to tap into that so that you can live a life that you love and really, really harness your potential, because you're here for a reason.
There's, and I believe that all the great scientists and all the great people who have really made significant impacts on our world from every perspective, like math, science, anything, engineering, medicine, they've all had a passion for what they were doing, and that like insatiable curiosity, and they were literally just following what brought them life.
Yes.
And that came out of tuning into their spiritual side, whether they were doing it consciously or unconsciously, right?
Yes.
Because some people will follow their passions and follow their dreams, and you talk to them about spirituality and they'll be like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then there's other people who are super spiritual, but then they don't tune in to what they really would love to do and go after it. So,
like they want to know, they're curious about like the universal forces and everything like that, but when it comes to their life, they're like, well, like, I don't know about myself, I don't think I'm enough, like or like,
I think it's important for everyone to understand, from my perspective at least, if you look at most major religions, the teaching in it is that you as a human being are not separate from that force. So you're not separate from God, you're not separate from the creator, you're not separate from this universal energy. And so when you follow that logic train a little further, what if the universe, this universal energy, God, created humans so that there was a conduit for the one energy that is everything to express through a physical creative being, so that it can bring about an experience and express itself and figure out things, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we all are from this one force, but we all have a unique expression of it, because the universe, God, is trying to expand itself and is trying to discover more of itself. And and just going forward for this episode, if we say like God, universe, it's interchangeable, so I don't have to keep saying,
course. Like I've been using God, like that label, more and more, and it's only been the last like month or two that I've been really like feeling solid with saying God, because you and I, we grew up Catholic, and there's a lot of just dogma, I think is the correct word to say, of like certain words, and God being one of them. Is like, when I was a child, I thought God was like a man in the sky with like a white robe and gray hair. But like, as my perception has evolved, it's now like God is representing the grand overall design, like everything, like all that, this energy, as you were saying, like that, literally all of our physical reality. And this is why like I've been shying away from saying the universe as interchangeable, because the universe is the physical manifestation of the creator. It's the creation. That's what I say. But it is imbued, like the universe, like all physical things are imbued with God, are imbued with this energy. So it is, it's just perception. Just personally for me, I've been using God. So yeah, I'm with you on that. It's just, for our listeners, whatever you want to input for yourself to make you feel comfortable, because it's about you expanding your consciousness.
So as a life coach, when someone asks you, what do you think my purpose is here? Or what do you
Mm,
think humans, like, what do you think our purpose is here? Why are we here? What do
yeah.
you tell them?
Well, it's a loaded question because there is a basic answer, but then there is an answer that can only be answered by the person asking it. So the basic answer that goes all that for everyone is to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
That goes back for millions of years, not just how long humans have been alive, but just since the dawn of creation. Like, and science goes back to of like the Big Bang. You know, ever since then, it's just been growing and evolving and expanding. Like, that's just the nature of life. That's the purpose of life, is to grow and evolve. It's so simple and simplistic, but there's a lot of power behind that, because then you come to yourself as the person asking, you know, what is my purpose? Well, it's to grow and evolve. So what does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because it'll be unique to every single one of us. And that goes back to a quote that we said in the first episode. Towards the end of it, I said a quote by Howard Thurman, who was Martin Luther King Jr.'s mentor. And he said, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, because what the world needs is more people who have come alive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's speaking to, like, what's your purpose, is what you feel is like most resonant with you, like what you feel you really want to do, what you feel that would light your soul on fire. That's what is going to evolve you, and that's what it's going to unearth some limiting beliefs that you need to let go of in order to
Mm-hmm.
then live that greater, freer life that you have within your heart and in your mind and your imagination. And that's the process, and that's what I help people do as a life coach.
Yeah.
Is grow and evolve. But yeah, it's so simple, but that piece of like knowing what you would love is a whole, I mean, we could spend the next 20-30 minutes just on that, and even have a whole nother episode. But I'm happy to, I definitely want to go into that a bit on this episode. But I'll pause there. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And I think you brought up
Yeah.
some really good points. And what stuck out for me was, I think people need to, you said it's up to the person who's asking the question. So
Yes.
like my purpose in life, although it's grounded in a similar energy, the expression of it is going to be different for me than it is for you, than it is for the next person or our parents or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important for people to realize that, because I think when you're growing up, you tend to, there tends to be this pattern of what, or this pattern of what people think success is.
Mm.
And they grow up and it's like, oh, if I'm making this amount of money, and if I'm married at this time, and if I have this many kids, and if I live here, and if I do this, this, and this, like, I will be happy and I'll be
Mm-hmm.
successful. I think society places that on us, whether it's on purpose or by accident. That's not really the point of my message, but it's about people understanding that their happiness and their level of success, it's in their dominion to define what that is for themselves.
Yeah.
And then once you can get to that place defining what success and happiness and your purpose means to you, then you're free, because then you're not tied down by what society deems as successful. You're living by your own code and your own standard at that point. And then you can start being more expansive with what it is that you would actually want to do, because it's just you and you, and
Mm-hmm.
you're asking yourself those deep questions of what would I love,
Mm-hmm.
instead of what do I think society loves, and what do I think society would want me to do, or what do I think society perceives as successful, and let me go do that.
Yeah, quick note about that though, because like what you're sharing is like, well, what like the what usually people say or think is like what a society think or what a society say is success. Like, it's very subtle, and I know that when people are listening to this, they'll get it, like what you just shared. But I
Mm-hmm.
want to really break it down so that people really like are hearing this like consciously, and integrating it in their life. Is that those thoughts are not going to sound like that. It's not going to be like, oh, like I'm realizing that what I've wanted is what society has wanted for me. No, like it's like you have this thought in your mind, and you've had it for maybe like months or years, where it's like, okay, success is having that house, having the family, having the money, having the car. But that's, you actually believe that that's
Mm-hmm.
what you want. But then when you start to ask these deeper questions of what do I really want? Like, is this truly my desire? Like, you'll know it within yourself. And like there's like and this is where like the spirit comes into this, like you just won't be fully settled or fully fulfilled when even just thinking about that greater freer life that is deemed worthy by society. Like unless that is truly like what you would want in your heart, then there will be like this resonance. And this is
Mhm.
where I was mentioning about the beginning of this, is that like it's kind of intangible, hard to talk about because it's a feeling, it's an experience. You can't really put into words, but that's the best that I can do about it. But it's just knowing like what that is for you. And so the questions you got to start asking yourself is this what I really want? Or have I developed that desire based on other people's experiences and what other people say or do or what I
Mhm.
see? So like start questioning yourself, so that, because the thoughts are always like, well, what do I want? Or what, like I want this, I want that. Like it's never like, oh, society wants that, so I wanted to break that down really quick, because like we
Yeah.
talk about it that way because we're aware we've broken down those beliefs that we've been impressed upon by society, and now since we are aware of that and have let go of that, we label it as like, yes, that's from society. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
No, it does. Yeah. And
Okay.
I think that's, I'm happy that you broke it down that way. And I think it comes down to like a nervous system response. Like when you think about what you'd really would love to do. And
Mm,
I'm going to go from a personal example because I don't want to speak for anyone else. But when I was back in my job as an accountant and I was thinking about, and I was miserable and I didn't like it, and I was thinking about what I would really want to do, when I asked myself the question of what do I want to do, the answer that came to me was I thought it was expansive, but it was inside a box of my current circumstances and situations of what I thought that I could have based on
yes.
my education, how old I was, my current skill set, and I boxed myself in. So
Yep.
as an accountant, as a CPA, I was like, okay, maybe I can try to get a job as an accountant at a company I like the Lego company or Nike. And then
Mm,
when I would put myself in that situation, I would feel a little bit better. And I thought that was myself being like, yes, like this is what I would actually like. But then when I got deeper into it, it really wasn't. And so
mm,
one question that really helped me to really break the circumstances and the box down that I had myself boxed in was, what would I love to do if time, money, or education didn't matter? And
mm-hmm,
you had taught me that question. And so when you asked that, and you always said, just, it doesn't matter how, doesn't matter. Like, don't even think about how you're going to do it. Just put the how on hold and think
mm-hmm,
about the what. Because when you think about the what and you don't think about the how, you completely take your mind and your attention and your nervous system off of the physical reality, and you enter into the world of imagination. And in the world of imagination, you can think about anything.
mm-hmm.
You can really think about anything. And then that's when stuff starts to get fun, because then you can really get to the core of, what do I actually want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You bring up a really good point, and that's, so two things you said that I wanted to highlight and like add my own spin on is, like you said, that don't focus on the how, focus on what. Because the how, this is what I interpret as, when you think about how it's all going to happen, like if you think, I would really love to start my own business, or I would really love to write a book, or I would really love, in your case, Chris, to be an acupuncturist. But the how was meaning you had to quit and then go back to school. And so it's a lot of like, oh my God, like it's a lot of time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like the how could get in the way. But if you focus on what you would love, then the how won't even really matter. But if you focus on the how, it chokes out the what. As in it stops you, it stops the creative flow that comes through you. And honestly, not even creative flow, but it just stops the flow of life coming
Mm-hmm.
through you, like that you feel more alive. Like we're not talking about just like an incremental increase in happiness, like just small little thing, like you were talking about just getting a job at a different company that you resonated with more. This is talking about a complete upheaval of your life so that your soul feels free, not contained or limited. And that again is unique to every single one of us. um so it's asking those questions of like, what would I love? And I said there was two things I wanted to respond to, but I can't think of the second thing.
Well, it's almost like it's like reverse engineering the how, kind of. So like if you think about what you want and then you immediately start thinking about the how, you you have to like tie all these dots together that you don't
Yeah.
necessarily see.
Yeah.
But if you focus on the what, and you develop a faith and you develop this confidence that you're going to get it, then
Hmm.
from that state you can ask, what can I do right now that can move me in the direction of that dream? you'll get an answer, and then you can start taking that step, and then from that next step another one will present itself to you. And there was a great teaching story that Mary brings up about the people walking in the desert like at night, and they had lamps strapped to their feet.
Yeah, it's back in the old days.
Yeah, and they were able to walk across the entire pitch black desert by stepping 1 foot in front of the other, one at a time.
Yep.
And you couldn't see the whole path about how they were going to get there, but each time they took a step, it lit up the path for the next step. And so if you have a destination of where you want to end up and you're really solid on that, you can start taking those incremental steps.
Yeah.
But if you're so focused on the how and you're trying to figure out every single step and connect the dots before it happens, you're never going to take the first step, because it's almost impossible when you're really thinking about a dream to know all the steps up front.
Yeah.
So,
and on top of that, like, we're talking a lot about like the what and the how, so focusing on what you want, and that comes from your desire of like what you would love, and that comes from your imagination, which is a part of your spirit. Like, you have infinite, like your imagination is infinite. And then how, it's like you start to, like you were just sharing, if like the steps to take will be revealed once you generate, like connect with the vibration, the frequency of what you would love, by imagining it as if it was real, which our brain cannot tell the difference between something vividly imagined and something in our physical reality. But then from there, like, that's like, we're getting into like the trenches of like how this all works. But I want to take a step back for a second and reconnect with why this all matters, and why this works. Because someone may be listening and being like, okay, that sounds great. Like, I could see the reasoning behind that, but like, you mentioned faith, like you have to have the faith. Like, where does that come from? Like, it's going back to just knowing and having a deep belief in the creator, in God, because it has created all things, and it is helping all things evolve. And I mentioned that everything in our physical reality, including ourselves, is imbued with God. And so therefore, everything is seeking growth and evolution. And your desire, your true desire, what you would absolutely love, that would light you up, that would light your soul on fire and you feel free and fulfilled, that is good. Like, it comes from life, it comes from God. And as you take those steps, like the first step that you see, then God is going to take thousands of steps towards you, as in you're going to receive the support that is necessary and need. And there's tens of thousands of stories like that. And like, Chris, your story is like that. My story is like that too. Like, I wouldn't be here owning, like I'm about to celebrate 2 years of my business in a month and a half. I've never owned my own business, and now I've my own business. I'm in, like, I have a relationship that I'm so deeply in love, like this woman I'm so deeply in love with. I've earned more money in this past year than I've earned in any year like ever worked. My health is better. So like, I've had this expansion, this growth, but it wasn't always that way. Like, I was in a place like you were, Chris, like, and maybe our listeners, like I was in a career path that I didn't resonate with, and I just didn't feel like it was for me, but it was logical. I would make great money. It was respectable to be a pharmacist, and like, my path was cut out for me, but I didn't resonate with it. And I'm so glad I started to listen to that voice within that was saying, like, do something different. And as I listened to that, because I had no idea, like at that time, like I wasn't even that super clear on like what I really wanted. I just knew what I didn't want, and I moved towards what would bring me more life, which was to leave pharmacy. And so like, doors started opening up. Like, I could honestly like tell my story for a good half an hour of like all the different things that literally just like fell into place or fell into my lap, because I was following that guidance, that feeling.
The things that just came out of the blue.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And just to kind of add in just a tiny bit of science into this part.
Hell yeah.
Because your brain, there's a specific part of your brain called the reticular activating system. It's a bundle of sensory neurons in your brainstem that filters sensory information from your environment so that your brain doesn't suffer from sensory overload. So now when you're going throughout your life and you have a specific goal or a specific vision that you want to bring about, your reticular activating system will let through sensory information that's related to that goal through to the higher centers of your brain, to the cerebral cortex, so that you can process it. But if you aren't thinking about what you want, the reticular activating system is just going to filter that out like noise. And you're
Mm,
going to think, how come I'm not seeing any opportunities that I want in my life? It's because you're not focusing on it. You're not working with your physiology and with your biology and with this amazing human body, this system that you've been granted and given to help you along that path. And so that was me. Like when I was really anxious and really depressed in my job as an accountant, my reticular activating system would filter out opportunities to be happy because I was so stuck in that state of anxiety and depression. And I would wonder why everything in my life was painted with that, that dark color, for lack of a better word. And so
mm,
I think that that's the really important to understand, that when you really decide on what you want, your body's designed to help you.
yeah.
Your physiology is designed to help you with it, but you need to give it a clear vision. You need to be clear on what you'd want. You need to start, thinking about it. And it's fun when you start imagining and you step into that imaginal realm, because again, like the boundaries of your circumstances and situations, no matter how bad they are, no matter how hopeless they seem, they just melt away. And you step into the creative center and you're like, yo, I can be and become and build whatever I want.
It's like
Yeah. Start.
connecting back to like what, like the imagination, like as you were a kid again.
Yeah,
Like
dude,
we,
remember playing with Legos? Like we would just build
oh
stuff and like
yeah,
build cities and crash planes and like it was,
it's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and we could live life with that same curiosity and that same joy for exploration as adults. We
Yeah,
have that capacity. Like those parts of our brain didn't turn off.
no, just underused. Like we need to just
Hmm.
allow. It's allowing. Like that
Hmm.
word, I've loved that word over the last few years of allowing things to happen. Like it doesn't mean to say that you're like just like sitting back and relaxing and not doing anything. But like when you dive into what you want, you need to allow yourself to know what you want and to know what would make your heart sing and to know what would light you up, and allowing that, because a lot of times it's just buried
Hmm.
under logic. Like, oh well, I don't like, I want to be a writer. I mean, writers don't make money.
Hmm.
What if I fail? Like, we start to like limit ourselves and like edit our own thinking about what we want before we even allow it to to shape into a dream.
Yeah,
And so it takes some work, but it's so
and
worth it. Like you said, it gets to be
yeah,
fun.
and just to also tie in some science there to the people who think about, let's do your example about, oh, I want to be a writer, and then your next thought is, oh, but writers don't make money. Again,
Mm-hmm.
that's your nervous system kicking in to keep you safe.
Mm-hmm.
And most times when our nervous system kicks in to try to keep us safe, especially when it's around our dreams and doing what we want, the voice that it kicks in with is it's a voice of reason.
Yeah.
It tries to reason with you, but it's it's most of the time, it's one of my favorite Jim Carrey quotes. It's most of the time it's fear disguised as practicality.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be a writer. It's more practical to be an accountant. Like I can't quit my job and go back to school for 4 years to study medicine because it's more practical to be an accountant. Because in 4 years I could be making X amount of money, and I'm gonna have to pay all this money for school, and then that your thoughts start to get the best of you. But
Mm-hmm.
when you realize that it's just your nervous system trying to keep you safe, and evolutionarily your nervous system has been very good at that, you can start to be like cut yourself a little bit more slack.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what happened to me a lot, man. Like when I thought about what I really wanted to do, like my nervous system kicked in hard. And it was like,
Mm-hmm.
nah,
Yeah. You
5 years of school. Yeah,
gotta be aware of it and
yeah.
use, like we also mentioned another thing on the first episode, a tool to help you in navigating that gap between like, what is going to shoot up in your mind as practicality, and it's using the tool of noticing what you're noticing. Because as you notice your thoughts and notice your feelings, and noticing that you can notice those things, then you start to detach from them as your reality. Like they still are a part of you. It's your human nature, and it's okay that it's coming up. In fact, it's actually good. A lot of people, like when they like start thinking of like doubting thoughts, they think it's bad, but it's actually good, because it's a sign that you're on your growing edge. It's
Hmm.
like you're the edge of your comfort zone, and you're bumping up against it. And so in those moments is the beautiful opportunity to connect back with what you really want, not based on circumstances, because you never know. It could work out way easier than you're thinking, because we
Hmm.
only have a certain like our viewpoint or our perception is only is limited. It's not all seeing, like that the eye of God is, the mind of God. It's all seeing. It's ever present. It's omnipotent. And so as you connect with that energy, with that part of you that wants to grow, that is God, that is life, that is source, that is spirit, then you can trust that, because it always and only goes for what's evolutionary and more expansive for all involved.
Mm-hmm.
And so you could easily say, like, that fear thought, that practicality, that doubting, like, get behind me, like, get in the back seat. Like, I, being the soul that is incarnated in this flesh, am the driver of this car. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to choose what I want, despite what may seem like it's going to be difficult or challenging or it's impossible. Just go for it. Because, like, one thing you just said, not just said, but in the beginning, that like all like major scientific like discoveries and like things have come to like fruition is like all from like a passionate, like someone who had passion and didn't believe in like the impossibility of things.
Yeah. It's having this ability to look at the world around you and like truly understand that everything that we call life, like all of the laws and all of the buildings and all of the just the structure of life, was made up by humans.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you're a human, so you can actually make a dent on it if you would really love to do it.
So do it.
Yeah. And I think I like what you said about the fear and being like, put it behind you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another like perception that people have, where it's like, oh, like if I truly would really love to do this, then like I wouldn't be afraid to do it.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, like you're gonna be afraid. Like fear is just a part of life. And again, it's your nervous system's response to being like, yo, we're about to do something we've never done before. But that it's not a stop sign though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Good point.
It's like a qualifier. It's like you're supposed to do things afraid.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're built for that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's bring this episode in for a landing. We're at about like 30 minutes or so. It's just been a solid episode, but I want to make this a bit more bite-sized, so it's not just like something that's like, rattling in someone's mind or just like they're mulling it over, but like doing something about it. So in my end, to like wrap this all up, what I would love for you, the person who's listening, a challenge to you is to just do one thing this week that you haven't done before, or that you have put off, or that, that would give you life, but you have just not allowed yourself to do, and go do it. Mm-hmm. Like it could be as simple as going for a ride on your bike, or going to a painting class, or doing some research on a path that you want to choose. Like, just do something, take a baby step, and put enough of those baby steps together, and you can travel any length of any path that can lead to a life that you want. But you have to begin. Like, you cannot keep it in your mind. You need to take action. Do something this week.
Awesome.
Anything else from you?
I mean, I would definitely echo that, and I would challenge everyone to just get inside that imaginal realm and forget about circumstances and situations, and just let yourself be expansive and truly start to think about what you would love to do if time, money, or education didn't matter. That was like the best question that I ever asked myself, because I never ever thought about what I wanted to do if money didn't matter.
Yeah.
Up until I asked myself that question.
Yep.
Because when you ask yourself that question, then I think you can truly get to the core and the essence of what you would love to do. Because let's say like you won the lottery, like you won $10 million, like what would you do with it? Like, yeah, you might say, oh, I'd take a vacation and, or buy a beach house somewhere and live for a year. But think further. Like there's going to be something that you're going to want to do, something you're going to want to bring about, something that's going to give you life, and you're going to feel so free to do it because money doesn't matter. So that would be my challenge. Like, if money didn't matter, time didn't matter, your education didn't matter, your life situation didn't matter, what would you love to do? And then just start thinking about it. You don't have to like take all the steps now, but just start there and start in your mind and start being expansive and thinking about what you'd love.
Dope. All right. So yeah, go do these things. Like, don't let this just be inspiration, or rather entertainment. Like, let it be an inspiration to action so that you can change your life. And we'll see you on the next episode.
That's it for today. So thanks for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it. So any questions, any comments, just connect with us on Instagram. You could always DM us at Kevin Francis Carton
and at Chris J. Carton. And also, if you feel guided to, the one thing we do ask is for you to please rate the podcast and leave us a review. This way we can reach more people and impact more lives with this amazing information. With that, we'll see you on the next episode.